So, as the title suggests, I think it's parenting in the new age. So, as the title suggests, we are moving into a new age. So, it's a time of transition that we are experiencing as a human race. Not only our software is being upgraded and the earth consciousness being recalibrated, but even the hardware is changing. As last time we were mentioning, that even the human body is changing in such a way that the purely feminine and the purely masculine, these distinctions are beginning to blur out. And in many ways, it's a time of upheaval and also a time of confusion. One thing is sure, that the old methods and the old measures do not work, and the sooner we understand it, the better it is. They just don't work. They've just fallen apart because it's a completely new thing, unprecedented, unexpected. And I can tell you with all responsibility that with all the readings that I have done, both in ancient thought and modern psychology, it is what is happening is really an unprecedented change. I read a book on psychology, on child upbringing, among the many books, and the only remarkable thing about this book was, in the preface, the author writes, "We thought we knew everything about a child till we had our own." And it's so true, because what we are leaving behind is the age of reason and analysis, and what we are entering into is an age of intuition. So as a result, on one side we see an intense activity of the rational analytical mind. It's like a last ditch effort. And this mind, what it is doing is, it's deconstructing, breaking down everything of the past. It has its role to play. But the forces of new creation, the construction, they are working. But they are working behind the scene, awakening of intuition. Still, it's happening quite rapidly. At least what I have observed, I am pretty amazed at the pace of the change. But one thing is clear, that the old methods and the old measures do not hold good. And I won't be surprised if in times to come, we find that parents and schooling becomes redundant. I don't know how, when it will happen, but it's happening very fast. I mean, we'll have, of course, probably human beings need an institutional framework, so they always like it. At the same time, what we need to understand is that because these children are very, very different, almost exponentially, the mind wants things to be perfect. It's a tendency of the mind. It's an age of perfection. So, need for just the right way to do it. This is one of the big challenges that I find difficult to address, because every parent, every teacher wants, they want just everything right. The problem is, if you want everything right, you are likely to go everything wrong. A strange situation. Because what we call as right from our limited mental perspective may just be the ferment which will give birth to something very different than what we expected. And what we call as wrong may just be feeding in the seeds of a new creation which are going to emerge from it. So, the lesser we have of all these frameworks through which we operate and navigate in life, the better it is for the intuitive sense to emerge. And I'm saying this because, the moment we have anything, whether it's yoga or life or parenting or man-woman relationship, we always want how to do it. How do I do the yoga? How do I practice? How do I begin? But when mother was asked, how do I do yoga? Tell us something about yoga. She asked a counter question. And I think that gives us the key. Why do you want to do yoga? So I would say the similar question every parent and teacher should raise, parent particularly, that why do I want a child? Is it really necessary? Like last time, why do I really want to get married? Is it really necessary to get married? Strange question, no? This is understood. But why? Is it because the law requires it, because the society wants us to do it? Or is it some deep truth within our nature which must express itself in the form of marriage? In which case, the question will be whether marriage is just an institution or something very different. And the moment we give an answer to it, we'll find the answers to many other aspects solved, like a simple thing, as I said, about marriage. And they are intertwined. So when I ask this question, why do you want the marriage? Why do you want to get married? So strange questions come. Sometimes people wonder why this question is important at all. And then some people come up with a very beautiful answer, that marriage is ultimately about love. Isn't it? So if there is love, do you need marriage? What if there is marriage but there is no love? Now, it's a strange. We are going to face these dilemmas in coming age more and more, because these children are not going to be confined to the frameworks of our, set patterns. Similarly, about a child, if I ask this question, why does one want a child at all? Now, right parenting, what is to be done, how it is to be done, comes much later. But the first question is, why have a child at all? Any answers? See, most of the time we'll see just an unconscious movement of nature. We are programmed like that. Like, when we were growing up, you're grown up, you have to do a job. Maybe tomorrow children will say, why do I need to do a job? All these questions will come up. Why should men only earn? Maybe men can sit at home and cook and clear up the things, and women can earn. Is there anything wrong about it? Nothing wrong about it. Just a mindset, a kind of conditioning. And things are changing in that direction. Similarly, we are told, you got to, marriage is a natural thing, job, and having children, it's natural. Why do you want to ask? Why do you want the child? We'll see that behind this impulse, what really is working and operating is an old game plan of nature. What nature wants? She wants to perpetuate a kind of cycle in which human beings are being moved. This is the old game plan. So marriage, then children, means a lot of energies are invested in a certain direction and very little is left for the upward progress. It's a fact, whether we like it or not. Having a child is a huge, huge responsibility. It's a huge, in terms of, I don't know, some people speak about 2 children and 3 children. How they really manage it's unimaginable, especially today's children. They need a lot of time, lot of attention. They are not like, I don't know how Kauravas, there are 100 children. No wonder they were all spoiled, How do you manage 100 children? You don't need to invoke any deeper cause, because they need time and attention, and enormously they absorb energy. Okay, what do we get in return? We get some joy and in old age security. This is an absurd kind of thing, especially in today's time, because in any case, security never comes from outside, it comes from within. If we feel, there are people who feel insecure even with their children all around them. I know of parents who, even when, children are past 60, they are insecure about themselves as well as for the child. So the child goes out and they say, no, you must come and tell me, wake me up that I have come back from the ashram. Actually, I am telling you, I have seen such parents. It's surprising. That's how it is. It's an old ploy of nature where all our attention goes into the future. Now, this future should be ideally the future which is emerging within us. But this future gets transferred on to the child. What does it mean? Whatever way I conceived the future, that gets extended into the child very unconsciously. If I saw my future as an, ambitious, a rich man or a bureaucrat sitting out there, then whether I like it or not, my child will extend it. Not only through genes, but there are so many ways. And then from beginning, we want everything to be right. Let's, right from conception and beautiful thoughts and beautiful things. Yes, but the seed that has gone inside, that's not a right seed. Or rather, it's the seed of the old creation. I won't use the word right or wrong. There is a seed of the old creation. And most often, unwittingly, we pass on that seed to the child. Our own unconscious impulses, desires, ambitions, shadows, difficulties, challenges, which we couldn't, and we want the child to overcome them, face them, and eventually reach out there. And very often we'll see parents are very happy when children are so-called successful and reach a spot in their life, isn't it? Isn't it the old game happening all the time? And what is that right spot at the end of it? And if we come to look at it, through all this drama, play, energy and everything, we want just that little bit of pleasure that my child is, doing this job in God knows America or Venezuela or New Guinea or wherever, it doesn't matter. Is that the end of the journey? No, certainly not. So, the first important thing is what we are within, that we extend into the world. This is the fundamental truth. So, right parenting, so-called right parenting, conscious parenting begins by not even conception, but by becoming conscious of ourselves. If I see my future as someone evolving and growing into a beautiful human being, I'm sure it'll just pass on to the child. We don't have to do things. We have to be. And that's the important aspect of all, spiritual transmission. Spiritual transmission doesn't take place by doing. Very often people say that Guruji ne mantra diya, Guruji ne ye method bataya. No, spiritual transmission is what you are. Extends. How did Sri Aurobindo awaken people? He was outwardly nothing. And yet inwardly, because what he is, it's just radiating all around. So the emphasis should be on changing ourselves. So whether we want a social change outside, larger context, or we want to bring about a new species, a new child, or we want them to grow into beautiful beings, whatever our conception is, then we must change within. That's the first step. Second is when we talk about, we all want our children to be good, isn't it? And it'll be very nice if we can have a little opinion poll on what is meant by good. Let me ask a very simple question. Obedient children, good or not so good? Youngsters have the right answer.
According to what we think, then they are good.
That's the catch. If children do according to what we think, then we think they are good. What if we are outdated? We don't question ourselves. What if all our ideas didn't hold the test of truth? So, now because nature has entered into a new mode of evolution, it does not want to create clones and carbon copies. It's meaningless, it's absurd. Which means children will begin to break out from parents and relatives. Thank God they are relatives, not absolute. Don't make them absolute. They are the most relative things in life. This is a big baggage we carry, at least as Indians, I must tell you. I love India and I am deeply Indian in my soul, but this baggage of relatives, Mama, Chacha, Bua, Tao, uska shadi, uska byah, it's what is this kind of stuff going on? It's a different age. This is a baggage. Let's understand, that we are carrying this baggage and children don't want to be that. They will not be that because it's a new mechanism. So the more we try to do it, because nature is now in a new mode, what it will do in children? Create revolt. Simply because they don't want, nature doesn't want, it's not even in their control. Nature doesn't want now to repeat the past. As simple as that. So you have to allow them to grow into the future. Now, when we think about the future, as I said, we start once again falling back into the past. Very unfortunate that man always try to understand the unknown on the basis of the known, and it takes number of hammers to understand that unknown is really unknown, and that's the joy and beauty of it. There's the wonder of it. So when we think in terms of, let's say, divine, we say what is known to us, highest human beings. So we project divine would be like that. He's very loving, very kind. So when first time the divine revealed himself on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was shaken. You are God. I'd never imagined God can be destroying this whole earth. It could be. So what? If destruction suits his purpose better, he could fail. If failure is the passage towards a victory. So we have to really widen our mind beyond the last limits, last horizons of thoughts. And this widening is not easy. It can only come about if we start living in large spaces of time. Large spaces of time, what it means is that our one brief lifespan is only just a moment in eternity through which a soul is navigating through cosmic space. And all of us are doing that. And in that life, what it will go through, what will not go through, it just is scaffolding for the next step. I was just reading today one of the letters of Sri Aurobindo today or yesterday, sometime, where Sri Aurobindo says that, no, the mother says, he says, many times, at least there is one life or a few lives when human beings have to go through the experience of failure. Because it's necessary for evolution. God knows if, one's own child has to go through it. How much parents suffer, isn't it? Why is my child failing in everything, failing in relationship, failing in school, failing in everywhere? Why is happening to my child? Now, make it on a large span of time. That he's on his journey, and in this life, he has to go through this phase. So what is my role? Each of us has got a role to play. Surely the divine thinks I am strong enough to help him through this process. That's what our role is, which means we have to be very wide. We often add to the problem. Why are you failing? You're not putting enough effort, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And because we have preconceived ideas about life, we cannot really find the true solutions. Tara, this beautiful example, she was not interested in studies. So there were a lot of complaints, and when mother was asked, mother called Taradi and asked her. She said, I am not interested in studies, as simple as that. So what are you interested in? Photography. All right, don't go to school, take up photography. Now this is called literally out of the box solutions. And she started photography. She's a very good photographer, by the way. I'm talking of Taradi in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi. And look here, who would ever tell her that, she is not any less educated than anyone and, gone all over the world. She can mix and with anyone, been to president's ceremony and all this. Because what is important is that the truth within must manifest. And this truth within is that child's unique truth, not my truth or your truth or anybody's truth. So we should not try to do that, to forcibly make the child mold into what we imagine or expect or wish or had ever wanted ourselves to be. No. So it requires a tremendous widening of the mental space and other spaces to understand and accept that each child is on his own unique journey, and we are here to facilitate this journey to grow towards the future. That's our role. We are facilitators, not deciders, not even initiators, not even somebody who must see that the child reaches this goal, because the goal is not just one lifespan, it stretches through great spaces of time. So it's very important to live in large wideness, and children demand it, they will compel it. Another thing which we see happening today is because of, earlier, especially in India, this transition is very difficult. Because Asia, by and large, lived with the sense of collective. Whereas the Western sphere was largely an individualistic oriented life. And I'm not going into the merits and demerits of it, but for the moment, let us understand and accept that we are entering an age of individuality and subjectivity. So each child, this Shobinda speaks about it, and he speaks about its dangers and yet the inevitability through which mankind has to go through. So age of individuality means each child now wants his own individual space. Now this is manifesting in terms of I want my room, I want to close my room, I want my own space, and don't see my diary, it's my corner. If nothing else, even in a small space. So children need that space, and they need freedom, because there can be no true growth without freedom. If there is no freedom, it is like creating an artificial garden. Once when a disciple asked mother, that mother, locusts, they destroy the garden, and mother said, this is a very small kind of thinking. And then she said, what if sometimes when you leave things in the wild, there is another kind of order which expresses itself. Is it? So said yes, and then he started giving examples. Then she gives example of her own experience in Paris, that when there used to be a wild place which was not kept trimmed, nobody was looking after it. It says after a few years, automatically it shaped into a beautiful place, but which is very different from how human beings will create a garden, because we want things to be symmetrical, we want this to be here, that to be there. But there is something which helps us even when we are not conscious of it, when we are not wanting it. And there is a proof of all this. That nowadays we want everything very conscious parenting. So we read books, we want to do it in a very, this way, that way. We read 10 books, and the more books we read, the more confused we become. Isn't it? But many children, you will see, who grew up in a certain age without much of these thoughts. So, and they just grew up. Some of them grew up into very beautiful children. It's also a fact. How were they shaped? What really helped? Because there is a guidance in life which we forget. So while we must play our role as a parent, we should never overdo anything. Overplaying our role, over-identification with our role. This is a very fine balance, that we have to act. At the same time, we should not overact, overreact, and start shaping everything. Allow space for nature, which is in a new mode. It's operating. For example, children nowadays, they go through many experiences which sometimes for parents can be very troublesome. How is it possible? Especially girls. So parents, especially in Indian setting, still are very afraid, she is moving around now with that boy. What's going to happen? She'll get married, this, that, or something may happen. We should understand that there is a guidance in life which is carrying. This lack of trust in this divine guidance in life is a source of lot of problems and issues. Sometimes perhaps it's best, when we cannot see anything, to simply pray and offer whatever is happening in a child's life or our own life to the divine, and say that, look, I do not know about it, but I am sure you know about it. You can guide much better. And then you will see that the child is emerging out of everything and shaping itself as a very beautiful being in the future. There's a very nice line in Savitri: when nothing we can see but drift and bail, a mighty guidance leads us still through all. And I can ask this question to all of us. We are here today. Have we not each committed our own, faced our own challenges, difficulties, made mistakes, etc., etc.? And yet, through all this, we have grown up. Something within us has grown and brought us here. It's not an ordinary thing, it has happened. And somehow it has happened. How it has happened? So if you see, there is a guidance in life which carries us. And it's important to tune ourselves to that guidance, both inwardly and outwardly. Outwardly, it's to every time we don't understand, and many times we won't understand, as I said, to keep on offering. Let the divine guide, and I can tell you it's wonderful. And whatever I am saying is based on a lot of experience dealing with many children. So it's not just some ideas that I am sharing. Inwardly, to keep tuning ourselves that I am not able to understand, and then we will see a new understanding will emerge within us. And Sri Aurobindo, how beautifully he puts it. What is this new understanding? There are children who belong to the past. There are children who belong to the future, and they naturally revolt against their environment. And we have to allow this space. Mother's own granddaughter was telling me, Purnadi, that when she came to mother, everybody had given up on her. The teachers, the parents, everyone. So she came and said, she met the mother, and mother smiled with all her love which she poured on everyone. And then Purnadi told her that, you don't know me, I am a very revolted kind of child, I am really bad child, not. She said, no, nothing like that. Actually, nobody understands you, you are a very fine child. Stay on, just stay. And she stayed on and, eventually lived here. Wonderful person. So let's open more and more to this inner guidance, this inner intuition, rather than all our mental conceptions. Then we have to also understand that there is a pace through which children evolve and they reproduce the evolutionary spaces. Our problem is when we reach a point, we think that's it. And we want everybody to suddenly catch up and reach that point. We do it with our own nature also. And it's not a healthy thing. Let's say that the soul within us is, aspiring for something very beautiful and we are on that point. Then we want, and even the higher mind is responding. Now we want suddenly that every other part should catch up with it. It doesn't catch up. And mother gives a very beautiful example. It's like when parents go far and children are left behind. They have to get back because children have their own pace. And they have to evolve through that. Sometimes we can make such a silly mistake which can create so much, trouble in life. I know of a lady who adopted an Indian child, and previously there was this idea that in India children are all anath and we must come and adopt. So this lady had come and adopted an Indian child. She had come from Italy and very enthusiastic about Indian culture and Indian things. She said, no, I'll not send my child anywhere. I'll teach the child myself everything, and which basically it will be only about Indian thought. So she started with Mahabharata and Ramayana and nothing else. The child was not exposed to anything else. She would not allow the child to go out because, the child would probably, vibrations are bad and the world is bad out there. And she had a schizophrenic breakdown. It's a very sad thing. Because everything is needed for our growth. We don't understand. There are parts which have to emerge and come into the play. And if you don't allow them their own play, their own pace, their own course of evolution, then you are actually creating a disbalance inside. Dislocation. We are not just a soul, we are an embodied being, totality. And through that, people grow. It's like, some people in olden times, it used to happen. For example, falling in love. Parents used to be very worried when, young children fall in love. Now, they then want suddenly that the child should be married. Now imagine a child is married but doesn't know what is love. It's a dangerous situation. So child will go through few experiences, eventually learn what really love is about. But if you don't allow this energy to ever come out, then what happens? It's never been trained. This part has never been trained. And nature doesn't train by theory, it trains by practice. It doesn't give you a lesson and say, look, this is what true love is. Very often parents will start this lecture, No, you don't know what true love is. This is all, what is it called? Some infatuation, correct. Infatuation is, that's how they start. Then next they understand romance, then they understand companionship, then they understand, there is something greater. It's an evolutionary journey. And we cannot, and if we are very scared, then it's like, our idea of perfection is the perfection of a paralyzed child. So a paralyzed child never falls. The only person who will never fall in life is a paralyzed child. It's a pity. But a paralyzed child will never learn to walk. he'll never climb Mount Everest, even if he wishes to. So that's not what perfection is about. Perfection is not a linear growth, it's a whole totality. And that's what we have to understand, that there are different parts with their each their need. That's why in this yoga, Sri Aurobindo shows so much patience. When somebody was asked, Sri Aurobindo was asked, why do you give such a long rope to all your disciples? He said, long rope is necessary because Superman cannot be created otherwise. What is this long rope? Try out, experiment. Not that you should consciously, but this is an age when children are bound to experiment many things because they must gather many types of experiences and then they will integrate and grow. Everything is a feeder. Every aspect in us has something divine within it, and it's being brought out today through the experiences of life. So then what is our role in it? Our role is one, to support them through the process. See, what does a gardener do? Gardener watches over the plant. Watch over the plant. Seed is there. You need to put water. What is the water? Love. Mother has said all that is needed is an atmosphere of love and peace. It's a big challenge. What I have seen is that in real life, people know all the theories. But because their life is based on ego, what takes place within the house is two persons put together, they begin to quarrel. Isn't it? Very unfortunate. Mother says, it's strange people quarrel. And we would say, Mother, it's strange that you think people shouldn't quarrel. They quarrel. Now nobody teaches in conscious parenting how not to quarrel. And yet quarrel is affecting the child. Even if you don't say, of course it's understood that please don't share your issues with your spouse, with the child. It's understood now. All this need not be told. But then, even if you don't do that, your moods, your consciousness, your vibration, all the time you are carrying, they are getting transmitted into the child. And that's the reason why mother said that, she was never in favor of letting the child be handled by workers. It's there. So now people don't understand the truth behind it. But what is our consciousness? Is it something very special and very beautiful? If yes, fine. If not, we need to work upon those parts. So, basically, constantly one has to work upon ourselves. It's not like now I have a child, I need to work upon the child. This idea of a finishing line is absurd because it leads to lack of growth. Anywhere, okay, now I have a degree, I am a doctor. Now I have a, MBA, now I am a management consultant. No. To remain a child full of wonder, constantly grow, constantly progress. So it's very important to work upon ourselves because whatever we are, that's going into the child. So an atmosphere of love and peace. And if only this can be provided, the mother says, a few drops, she doesn't even say atmosphere, few drops of true love, if we can pass on to the child, and an atmosphere of peace. It's not easy. Let me tell you, even here with teachers living for so many decades with all the, grace. I have seen teachers losing their cool, almost shouting sometimes, that no, you can't, this child, we can't do anything. But that's not what is required. So I take this example and where do I draw the example for ideal parenting from? I take this ancient Indian sloka as my example. And here I was just reading this Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva. But also we have another one. Maybe it may have been taught. Tvameva Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, Gurur Devo Bhava, Deva Devo Bhava. So normally it was old world, it was interpreted as mother is your God. Don't you know? You must worship her as God. Poor mother. She has to fit into God's shoes. Too big for anybody's size. Father is your God. Listen to your father. Do as he says. Poor father. He knows very well he is far from being even God with a small g. And his wife knows very well that he is no God. Poor teacher, Acharya Devo Bhava. But there is another sense to it. And the another sense is, O mother, be as God is a mother to us. O father, be as God is a father to us. O teacher, be as God is a teacher. Now, how does God deal when He is a mother? He pours love and light and keeps on strengthening the beautiful parts in us. She never judges. There is a very beautiful passage of the mother in Words of Long Ago, where she says that Divine Mother, she never judges, never condemns anyone. So what does she do? She pours her heart of love. And I think that was the saving grace in the old creation. Heart of love which mothers had. Now also they have. But because of as I said, the rational intellectual side is exhausting itself, sometimes we are suffering from this civilizational disease, which is called lovophobia. Lovemia, anemia, like from that. So it's diminished. The energies of the heart are diminished because there is too much emphasis on the analytical side. So we don't know how to love even our next door person, creation, children is a far cry. So we need to bring it out. And the best way to bring it out is to bring this heart in contact with the very source of love, which is the divine. If we can do that, then it's the simplest way. That's why the heart of a bhakta is always full of maitri and karuna, because he is in contact with the source of divine love. But if not that, we must at least learn to love truly anything and everyone, whatever is in our house, from plant and people to everything. And this energy of love we should bring out and pour on to the children. Unconditional, without judging, without condemning, without putting them into negative role playing. And as a father, how does the divine deal with us as a father? He has infinite patience, never gives up. We give up. McDonald's, KFC is right, found their shops inside our vital. Very impatient. That's where we need to work upon. This is one of the difficulties of this age. Impatience. One of the big problems, because everything is on fast forward mode, so we want everything. Even spiritual life. Oh, tell me a way, tell me a process, tell me a method. It doesn't work like that. Patience, so important. So patience when we deal with children. What about a teacher? Teacher tries, the divinest teacher tries all kinds of methods through real life experiences. He also never gives up this way or that way or this way. If you observe in your own life, you'll see how Mother has tried so many ways to work upon us. And so also with the teacher. And then new methods will emerge. If we have genuine, the moment somebody says that, well, I don't know now what to do with this child. It's not a judgment on the child, it's a judgment on the teacher. Because obviously, it's my limitation that I don't know what is to be done to a child. Whereas if we are really sincere and seeking, the child will grow. And we have to understand that the method has to be appropriate to the age. It's an evolutionary journey. Each child is different, evolving in a different pace, different ways. So it requires really a lot of plasticity in the mind. That's why sometimes books become a big problem. Systems, theories become a big challenge. Because they fix our mind into a formula. And one of the first things we need to understand is there is no perfect formula for parenting. Or, teaching a child. Let it evolve. What is important is love and goodwill. If I have that, ways will evolve because the teacher is within. He will give us way, and I have seen so many strange ways that has helped children. Sometimes something like, okay, the child should play a little more, and it has helped a lot because it was just nothing but restless energies. That's one of the things which is again missing today. Is so much focus on achievement and mental this thing that we miss out on that. This school, I think there are two beautiful things about this school. One, most important, atmosphere of Mother and Sri Aurobindo near the Samadhi. Even if you do nothing, even if people are horrible, doesn't matter. That itself helps. And the second is an emphasis on physical education, especially because the whole things are changing. So we have to have some space or some kind of program for that. It is missing very much. Again, this was there in old times because uh, we had a lot of time. Now that's a big challenge, how to have time to play. So there has to be, probably schools have to gear up for that, separately take out time, because parents are not going to send, and children are unlikely to go, because once they are with the WhatsApp, who is going to go on to the real play? It's virtual play which is important. But all this is just a churning of the mind, so we should not be worried too much about it. It's a phase. Finally, I would say that maybe a generation or two, maybe like a kind of a washout generation where nature is trying out ways and means. But the same children will return again, and they will eventually get the evolutionary boost. Right now, nature is pulling off these scaffoldings and helping the inner intuition to emerge. And maybe children, quite a few children, may not be able to navigate because they are caught between two worlds, and it's possible. So don't not to be disheartened if you observe this. It's okay. As I said in the beginning, sometimes a whole generation has to go through challenges and problem for which there is no real solution, because there is a solution which will emerge. It's like there are people who have to keep a vigil through the night. The day will emerge. So we are going through one of those transitions, a cusp, and therefore there are no perfect ways. But it's important always to keep referring, because the perfection is within, and if the more we refer to what lies within us, the more we'll see that we'll equip the children better, and spontaneous ways and means will come out. Don't try to fit them into molds of the past. They are broken. The beautiful things of the past remain, but the forms are broken. Even these forms that you must go do this prayer, bow down, all that is gone. Children sometimes say, why should I? God is within us. Wonderful. They are far ahead of us. So all these methods and forms, institutions of the old times are gone. Uh, can be rest assured that in coming times children will not get married. As an institution, it is gone. They'll just live together, reconcile to this fact. And it's a nice thing which will happen, because especially for girls, because they can choose to opt out when they feel stifled in a relationship. Right now they can't. So all these are going to happen whether we like it or not. Children are going to take up any kind of work, not just respectable jobs, because that idea of respectable job is also going away. So they will take up a job which they feel happy about, and allow them to pursue it. It's perfectly fine. In a certain sense, it's all okay. Nobody is a loser in this race. Everybody is a winner, because everybody is moving forward. So trust God and take the lead. Any questions? Yes, please. Yes. But I must say, I've deliberately avoided any strict systems and ways, because in the beginning I said that that's not how it works. Yeah, please.
So, it was one of the things that you said made me think of this question.
Yes, please. Any question?
So, what if the children assumes that he wants to become something because of the conditioning around him? Suppose he wants to become a lawyer, and that's because his mom and dad has been telling that lawyer is really nice, it's a respectable job and this and that. And now he's conditioned and feels that that is what I want to become. He works very hard for it. And because of the competition, he doesn't get it. Because probably even though he assumes he wants to become, he is not meant for it probably.
Absolutely.
Or something of that sort. So he starts suffering. So at that time, being a person who is really concerned or one of the guardians of the parent, how would we make the child to stand in a position where it can realize its strength or the actual thing it wants to become?
Yes. Question is on two levels. One is the parents. You must counsel the parents. It's important. but many times they don't listen. That's also true. Many parents who come to me for child counseling, they want me to tell the child a set of things. And they don't like when I tell them a set of things. Just let him be free, it's okay. So it will need a very wide and generous heart. You see, what that child is suffering from is a lack of self esteem, because the child feels now not accepted. Because what happened is he has been put into a paradigm. That's precisely what the challenge is. You must conform to this, and if you don't, you are not good. That's it. So, what such a child needs is a very unconditional acceptance to start with. If he knows that, well, I am loved regardless of what I do. And I understand it's not so easy. In an atmosphere like the ashram or Auroville, it's definitely easy because people have come like that. All are the, dropout elements or those are broken. Okay, let me use a generous word. Because nowadays for ashram intake, you need to go to a psychiatrist. So I asked one of the ladies. So I asked only one question: are you normal? So yes, I have no problem. I say, okay, it's okay, I'm putting it. Only one lady had the courage to say that if I am normal, why would I be here? I said, you are the super fit, right person. So, this, because obviously normal people pursue normal aims. Why would you pursue an unusual aim? So, in such force fields, it's all right. But I understand that outside, where they are being impinged from all kinds of social pressures, it's important to isolate the child from that environment. It's important because poison is breathing all through. Unfortunately, we don't have many such places. But I do recommend sometimes that people should stay in Auroville for 5 months. At least let them, breathe a fresh air. Ashram is different because ashram is a very intense place for consecration and sadhana. So, while there is this love and joy in the atmosphere, but Auroville is a wonderful place. So, as a practical means, and mother is created like that. So, let the child just stay for some time. Just meet people, interact with them. And there is a need for more and more such spaces to come up. But as far as oneself is concerned, just give that unconditional acceptance and love, and you will see that the child himself will come up with, after you have won the confidence, will come up and say, I have had a boy who said, eventually after few sessions, what I was doing, I was not, he would take leave and come and stay, and all parents wanting to similar situation, and then, you have to allow time for him to undo a lot of stuff. So we'll just go for a walk and all this. So one day just, I asked him, by the way, given a free choice, no barriers, no issues of money, no parental pressure, what would you like to do? He said, actually I would like to do modeling. I said, wow, you are smart. You can do modeling. What's wrong with it? I mean, see, it's perfectly fine. We put slots. This work is good, this work is not good. It's okay you start your journey any which way. And another thing is that why is work important? Work is not important to earn money or reach a position. Work is important to, grow. It's a journey. So you grow through work. So any which work. So anything that the child feels engaged with, just let the child take up that work. And you will see that the doors will open, because what he's doing is he's not doing this and therefore not trying his hand at anything at all. So what is happening now? These energies are all locked inside. But leave the wide field and say, let him take up any work, anything. Photography, okay, I love to do adventure sport, do an adventure sport, go to gym, whatever he feels like. Just type out something or just start writing creative ideas. Any which work, doesn't matter, but work is important. Or washing utensils, working in a hotel is fine. So engage the child with some work which will start letting his energies flow in some direction. Once the unlocking takes place, then they will find a space. If the unlocking doesn't take place, then one is caught up in the formation that I must do this or I am no good. So unlock the the energies. That's important. So these are the few things. Yeah. Yes? Yes, Arsh.
Just in continuation of, but just in continuation of the unconditional love path, what if you're giving the unconditional love to the child and then child really doesn't want to do anything else because he knows okay, that the love is there.
Fine. Fine. Unconditional love, by he may spend 10 years just exploring himself. That's precisely what unconditional love means. See, we are worried. Sometimes, as whose poem is it? They too serve, who wait and watch. Life grows in many ways. We have no clue. And you see, look at a bamboo. It for many years it lies dormant in the ground. Whereas there are trees which shoot up very fast. Which is better? Krishna takes the bamboo for making his bansuri. For a long time, if you take a bamboo, you don't know what's happening inside, whether actually it is growing or not growing. So there can be long spaces when the child really doesn't know what he is doing. Of course, by unconditional love, let me be very clear, it's not like pampering to the child's desires. That's not unconditional love. But an acceptance of the child that no matter what you do and who you are, we love you. It doesn't mean that, I say, okay, beta, what you want? You want a car, I am going to buy for you. Then you have a Vijay Mallya in the making. Certainly not desirable. Yeah. That's what is the benchmark of success. And when he was 4, they bought him a Mercedes car. So obviously, ultimately, Mercedes car has make him go around the world full circle and knocking at the doors of the jail. So that's not love. Love is a very powerful vibration which, I'll tell you very simply, in practical terms. Love completely ignores all that is dark, ugly in another person and always encourages, even if there is a small spot of light, it pours itself on that. Doesn't matter, small thing, every child has. Just encourage that. As to the rest, you can give your suggestion, talk to a child. I'm not saying don't talk to the child or talk with reason and all that. But if the child says at the end of the day, I want to take sabbatical. A lot of children nowadays want 1 year, 2 years and experiment. It's okay, fine. No want to take up a work, they don't want to take up a work. It's all right. They are discovering themselves. Then after a while, because, see, nature will rebound. How long will you stay at home playing just, video game? Because nature will pull you out of that state. You can't continue inertia for a long time. And again, I am saying this based on number of children I have seen going through this experience when they don't want to do anything. And suddenly after a while they get a flash. Now I know I want to do this. Actually, I had this experience even with my own son. So he was in ESP and he quit it. So he wanted to go to Australia and he was applying. I said, okay, you apply whatever. Then for 5-6 months he was doing literally nothing. Literally nothing. Just, enjoying, watching nice movies and telling me all the details about, what movies he's watching, this, that. Then eventually, one day he comes up with a bright idea that, I want to connect things and, suddenly his goals and everything started emerging and now he's so busy that, even to say hello, you will discover because there is a guidance in life. So sometimes you go through a phase and you have to allow that phase. It's a space to grow and it's perfectly fine. It's valid. We should not. So unconditional love means that. Not that, okay, it doesn't matter. Some parents say, don't do work, I have got lots of money. No, certainly not. Equally, not to push the child, but let him explore. So, children understand. After all, he's a conscious, all children are human beings, Human beings are programmed to at some point reflect, to at some point bounce back. Let them take their time. It's perfectly fine. I've seen children 3 years, 4 years not doing anything. And parents were really in misery. And at one point, I also wondered, how much assurance to give every time. Abhi bhi kuch nahi kar raha hai. He said, karega, don't worry, karega. Kuch galat habit to nahi hai. He's not coming home drunk and all this. Even that children go through. I have had seen such things. Karega, chinta mat karo. Then, eventually, he was, now he's so settled, they're very happy. I said, even then, it's a journey. Sometimes you need to stop over, breathe, take rest, enjoy the, life around, look back, look forward, prepare for the leap. It's fine. This comes with trust in the guidance behind life, behind all the anomalies. Yes.
Dada, it's all about now grown-up children.
हाँ.
जो छोटे बच्चे रहते हैं just more than 1 year or 2 years like that, if for them guidance is required or not. If they are if they are very naughty and not listening to you, and they are required guidance or not,
Oh.
they have to be left.
Okay, so first of all, it's a practical question. The two most beautiful characters in Indian mythologies are Krishna and Hanuman. Extremely naughty. Naughty children are hope of the future. It is the sadhu bachchas which are very scary. Because we don't know what they will really end up doing something. They are just run of the mill kind of children. Plenty, nature has produced like that. So, naughty children means what? They have abundant vital energy and they need to you have to channelize it. Now, how do you channelize? They will tire you with the number of activities. Give them as many activities. At some point, you will reach the end of your limits. अब और क्या दूं इसको? Yes, that's the challenge of the teacher. You have chosen a profession. You can't say, I have reached the limit. अच्छा एक और एक्टिविटी क्या करें अच्छा इससे तो बना इससे कर दैट्स व्हाट शुड बी आइडियली गिव देम लॉट्स ऑफ एक्टिविटीज लॉट्स एंड लॉट्स एंड लॉट्स लिटरली लॉट्स
And when you're
and if they are not listening to you there is hope because that means they can really and mother has said this by the way that the words obstinacy which often is regarded as something negative children are saying no नहीं सुनेंगे जो आपने बोला नहीं सुनेंगे सी सेज इट्स द अपवर्ड साइड ऑफ ए डिवाइन क्वालिटी when they discover their goal they will stick to it and not listen to the voices of the world just as they are not listening today. So obstinate children are wonderful children but yes they tax us no doubt about it because they are different so they don't listen. So what do? We grow up. We have to grow up to meet the challenge. So it's okay. So that's why school should be less and less structured. And I can tell you a time is going to come when all institutions, not only schools, whether it be home or whether it be even ashramas, they will be largely such wide and plastic structure that you'll almost feel that it doesn't exist. That's the future of mankind. It's already happening. People often ask in ashram, olden time mein aisa tha. Are correct? But the mother knows best. So now even the ashram has become a very plastic structure, very wide. Many times you won't know this is an ashram inmate, it's not an ashram inmate. Isn't it? Some of us who have been staying here for some time will notice. Because it's now moving towards a very high goal. So in the beginning you need to structure a little bit. That's the problem. So structure the child based on the interests of the child. Not doing, sometimes very important to know what is not to be done, more important than doing as far as a teacher is concerned. Minimum of don'ts. Minimum of don'ts. I take this example from the mother's ways. We are all children, students in this school called the ashram. And what did she write? Minimum of rules, maximum of freedom. She went on to say, I don't like to use the word rules. I am against rules. Because people asked her, therefore she wrote, minimum of rules and maximum of freedom. But if you see the earlier note, she says, I am not in favor of rules. Because they thwart growth. So allow the child. Sometimes children doesn't want to study in a class. Perfectly fine. Just leave him a little free. Just watch. Somebody should be around that, he doesn't do any harm to himself. That's important to take care of the safety. What is he doing? He's jumping around, touching this tree, touching that tree. That's it. Of course, he should not be allowed to disturb the others who want to, learn. But he has a right to remain in ignorance if he wants to remain in ignorance at this point of time. This is very challenging, but that's how Mother has said. In fact, she has used the word right to remain in ignorance. She says everybody has a right to remain in ignorance if they want to remain in ignorance. And who knows, that's needed for the child's growth. It's required, it's very unconventional approach. And it's only possible when schools, right now they are very fixed structures. The school to which Mother gave name in Auroville, one of the schools, was the last school. Still people went on to open another school. Didn't take a cue. Last school. We should challenge everything, including why do we need schools? Why can't there be a collective space in which... That's how the ashram school started, incidentally. Now it has become more like a formal structured school. What was happening earlier? Children came. Now where there are children, they need to, be engaged. So they have to be engaged in an activity appropriate to them. So if they wanted to learn French, okay, go there and learn French. Then they could go and play. They could come. You ask the children of those days how they have grown up. Then you had later on, all this added and all this structure has come up. Now you have classes, even courses, almost short of giving a degree. But these frameworks will again go away because they thwart your progress. So in a school you have to create that, provide opportunities to grow, spaces to grow, allow creative freedom, and be there as a kind of guide as God guides. You know what God does? Most of the time He does nothing. But you know that He cares for you. He intervenes when it's necessary. When Draupadi's food is over, He suddenly comes from nowhere. When she's in distress, He's there. So she knows Kana is with me. Isn't it? But He doesn't start telling Yudhishthira, don't play this game of dice, you're going to lose. And fool, you will be 13 years banished. Yudhishthira has to learn his lesson that look, I have done a fatal mistake. Though he's a sattvic person, that was the time Yudhishthira evolved. He did something which he should have never done to start with. It's not his kingdom which he has put on hold. All the great fellows sitting in that sabha were idiots. How can you put your kingdom and your wife, because your wife and your kingdom do not belong to you to start with? Fundamental thing. So He allowed him to learn this through a painful lesson, 13 years of banishment. Krishna, who loved them, how did He guide them? This is how He guided them.
Why did the others suffer?
It's not suffering, it's growth. Suffering is because our mind doesn't understand. It's constantly growth. For everyone it was a constant growth, including for Draupadi. What did she discover in that whole suffering? What has remained as the end point of the story? At the end, what remains is the take-home point. If I ask many children when they went, they remember first day in school, it was so horrible, painful, crying, isn't it? But later on they smile and say, I used to cry like this. What has remained is the joy of that experience. So the ultimate mint of every experience is delight. What is Draupadi's take-home point? Yes, it was very humiliating experience. What is the end point? O thou who dwellest in my own heart. Isn't it? Now, that ultimate point she had to reach through an ultimate experience. Sometimes you need ultimate experience for that ultimate challenge for that ultimate experience. Well, that's how life is, creation is. Life and creation are, for God's sake, not moral. They are not immoral. They are not amoral either. Or we may use the word. There is a guidance which is working through everything to carry us upward. Suffering, pleasure and pain are momentary responses of our ignorance. And the divine allows us to go through it because, He knows at the end of it there is the growth. So we should focus on that growth and give maximum opportunities, lot of creative freedom, and minimum of rules and structure. That's my ideal school, and that's what I've understood from Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I don't know whether it exists anywhere or not. Probably it exists in the inner spaces of humanity and it'll come up. Auroville is probably such a school. I don't know.
I don't know, of course, this may be a theoretical question. The families who believe in God,
Yes,
families who believe in God, or for example, follow some other Sri Aurobindo or some
yes,
other
yes.
in Indian families, sometimes there is a dilemma that, of course, we on one hand we know that we cannot teach spirituality to anybody and not to kids. But
Absolutely.
there always remains a desire in the mind that we should at least believe in God. So, I mean,
Sometimes a non belief is a faster way. Agnosticism is a phase which much of humanity has to go through. See, many of us, I'm not saying about, of course, because I know you are so deeply tuned to Mother and Shivinda, but I'm saying there are families who believe in God, but in a very conventional way. And children must go through a phase of purifying atheism. Once in Patiala giving a talk, one child in 11th standard, she told me after my talk, said, but uncle, I have a problem. I said, yes, my child. Says, I don't believe in God. So I asked her, what kind of God you don't believe in? Said, a God who punishes. I said, exactly, we are on the same page. So what kind of God you believe in? Somebody who loves. I said, we are again on the same page. So, actually, most of the time when children don't believe in God, it's a conception of God. So, we need to ask them. They have a conception of, like here, I have seen children, since you mentioned about Mother and Shivindu, there are children who have grown up here and they've been drummed into their heads that the mother was a strict authoritarian disciplinarian, which is very far from true. But they have grown up and they have revolted and reacted to this. And then, it took time to undo that conditioning and bring out that mother is nothing but an embodiment of love and grace. So, who would not want love and grace? But this idea that there is a God whom we must worship, whom we must bow down, and who has some fixed set of standards and norms for us, who wants us to obey him, and if we don't do, we rot in hell. Of course, this is not there in Mother and Shiv Bindu's this, but many of these karma theories, you rot in hell or you lollipop in heaven, is absurd. Children don't want it, because it's not true, anyways. So, a phase of purifying agnosticism and even atheism has its utility in the evolution of mankind, and much of mankind is going through that. And it's perfectly fine if they don't believe in God, as long as they believe in human goodness. And even if they don't believe in human goodness, as long as they believe that things can become better in progress, that's good enough. If they don't believe in progress, then one has to be a little more careful. Any which way progress, at any level, that's a door which is open. Progress, be it, if you are a doctor, be a good doctor, and it's fine. Each one his own face. Yes, please.
An extension to this.
Yes.
I mean, there are people who believe in God and believe in doing things.
Yes.
Like if I worship, God is going to be happy.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this 7,000
Ah, God.
puja.
My God.
See the
Yeah.
horoscope, this, this ring,
Yeah.
and all these things.
Yeah.
So for them, when we say that God is something very pleasant and you don't have to do something.
Exactly. See, God is not amused by all these things. Mother said this in so many words. Do you think you make a divine being sit like this and do all this agarbatti and puja, he'll be happy? He loves to play. See, go back to our own mythology. Two great figure of gods, seemingly opposite. One is Shiva. What is Shiva's beauty? Easy to please. Another Krishna, another extreme. What is characteristic about him? The one thing we remember is play. He loves to play. Play with God. What is there? I mean, we are the ones who have created such a big distance between us and God. And what is worse is between us and God, another fellow has come with a fat pot belly and tilak on the forehead and a janeo in here and calls himself priest. Get rid of priests. You don't need them. He's here, right here. And play with him as a friend. Talk to him as a... I'll close with one small story regarding this. Yeah, okay. No, this is a story about a girl who was suffering from a lot of depression for a long time, 5-6 years, but a very nice girl. And she couldn't be friendly to anyone, and nobody would befriend her. And it's a big challenge to oneself if nobody is friendly to you. So the session was literally few minutes very casually. So I just told her, why don't you make Krishna your friend? And she took it to heart. She met me after a few years and said, that changed my life. I talk to Krishna. I walk with Krishna. So beautiful. So God is a friend, and you can tell anything to a friend, isn't it? You can share any which thing. What did Sri Ramakrishna Paramans tell to Girish, who was drunkard and debauched and call it whatever? And he said, I like you, but I can't do this yoga business and all. Sri Ramakrishna said, why? He said, I can't leave all these things. He said, who is asking you to leave? What should I do? You offer them to me and do it. So after 1 week, he said, it's very difficult. How can I drink, offering the drink to you? He said, well, you have a choice. Divine loves to play, and he's an infinity of love. He doesn't mind whether we believe in him, we don't believe in him, we believe in this way, that way. That's why he is love. He just does his job, and his job is to pour love and light and beauty and peace and harmony. It's just we who turn ourselves away and close ourselves in a small little pettiness and miseries. That's the only problem. He doesn't care whether we go to temple or we read a holy book or not. There is a aphorism of Sri Aurobindo, by the way. God, what is it? Somebody may remember exactly. I went to a holy place and was bored there. God took me to a prison and made it his trysting ground. I went to a holy place. Isn't it? Holy places have become so boring. I don't know. I wonder what children like it still. I am more worried about children who like holy places like this. Going with those pandas, doing puja and all this. And how can they stand all this, utter nonsense? Either the reason is not developed or the soul is not awake. It only means that. Only when we are completely belonging to the herd that we can conform to such things. But children nowadays, they know how to connect. They don't use the word God, and God doesn't care about it. Near-death experience of a lady who had died and saw a being of light, and she asked him this question. It's a real story. So she asked him, by the way, which religion is best? And the answer this being of light gave is that, frankly, I don't care. Love, that's all he looks for. And this is there in our scriptures, no? दुर्योधन के मेवा त्यागे, साग भी दुर्गर खाए, शबरी के झूठे बेर उसको ग्रहण किया. Sabri का क्या method? What was the method? She was eating and giving. Try doing it in a temple. In spite of all the Ramayana, they have not learned this. Isn't it? He loves us to be spontaneous, to be loving, and just trust him and open to him. Doesn't matter any which way we are, but at the same time, even if you don't believe in him, even if you were not to trust him and love him, know for sure that he loves you. Sri Aurobindo, in one of the shortest letters, he says, remember that the mother loves you. Base your life on this one truth, and everything will change. That's why he is God. All right. We could go on, but let's call it a day here. Thank you so much.